Hello, everyone. Today is Wednesday, February 23rd, and this is the Cluster API office hours. If you're just joining us for the first time, you can get access to this meeting notes document by joining the SIG Cluster Lifecycle mailing list. And just a reminder that we have a meeting etiquette. Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. I'll make sure to call your name. And if you have any topics that you want to bring up, feel free to add them to the agenda below. If you haven't already, please add your name to the attending list and let's get started. All right, so first off, just checking in on the proposals that are in progress. Does anyone have any updates that they want to bring up or anyone want to call attention to a specific proposal? Fabrizio, go ahead.
Yeah, I have also topic down in the agenda. I've moved the runtime SDK proposal to a PR. So the PR is linked down, and I have also updated the link here in the open proposal section.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. I guess we'll get back to it in the topic below. Matt, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you to you and Fabrizio and Stefan. We got some really good feedback on the machine pool machines proposal, and all of a sudden there's some really good questions. And so basically this is a good time if people want to take a look at it. There's some, this is a great time to give more feedback, and thanks very much. That's all.
Awesome, thanks. I also posted about it in the Kappa channel since I thought the AWS machine pool folks would be interested in taking a look.
Definitely. Thank you.
Cool. Anyone else have anything to say or any questions about these proposals? All right, let's move on. Okay, so do we have anyone, if there's anyone here who's new to this meeting and hasn't been here before and wants to just introduce themselves and say hi, now would be a great time to do so. I'm going to mute and I'll let you go ahead and unmute and just say your name and what company you work for and what brought you to the Cluster API project.
Hi everyone, I'm Asif, and I have been interested in Kubernetes for some time, and right now I'm a software engineer in a small company. It's a small team, so that's yeah, that's it from my side.
Thanks, welcome, Asif. Do we have anyone else? All right, if not, let's move on to our first topic. I don't believe we have any PSAs today. Fabrizio, Vince, Alberto, Stefan, anything that we should announce? Okay, Mike, you want to take the first topic?
Yeah, sure. So I was kind of wondering this because this is something I've been struggling with the last couple of weeks, which is basically, you know, as I'm trying to kind of increase what's going on with the KubeMark provider, I have a bunch of questions about like, okay, setting up a monthly meeting, you know, how should we structure our release cadence? Like what kind of announcements should we make when we do releases? And I'm struggling, you know, I'm making some progress, even though it's like kind of an uphill battle for me, but I'm just wondering, you know, I started to think about this since like Cluster API is kind of like a community that's growing, and, you know, we're inviting providers to kind of do this stuff. I wondered if maybe there would be room for a section in the book. You know, we have a bunch of great provider advice about like how to create your API, how to create your controllers. And I wonder if we might make a document just kind of giving some advice about, you know, when is a good time to start having a monthly meeting for your provider, or a weekly meeting, or whatever cadence you choose. You know, how should you structure your releases? Is there any like common wisdom that could come from the providers who have been doing this for a couple of years already that we could share? And that's really, you know, a little bit of this is a selfish ask on my part because I'm kind of working through these problems, but I think it also might be helpful to other people who are creating providers as well. So I just wanted to bring the idea here and see what people thought, and, you know, maybe where we could go next with it. I see Vince gave +100 in chat, so that sounds cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, who is this?
This is Paul Jenkins from Oracle.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I think that would be good because we're kind of been going through that, and we are going through that stage at the moment, ready to complete our provider, and we've got sort of similar sort of questions and looking for guidance. So yeah, another plus 100 for that.
Yeah, some of this guidance might not be cluster API specific though. Like some of this stuff might be more appropriate for like the SIG or even Kubernetes SIG's community. And I think there's some of that already for like best practice for running an open source project and public meetings, etc. But I think some of it is definitely like, how do you follow cluster API releases, etc. And we could definitely have some shared knowledge out there, but we should be careful about not enforcing it though, because every project is different. Some project might not have the resources to run the project the same way that others do. So you need to be careful about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are absolutely great points, Cecile. And I certainly do not want to try and create, you know, a non-goal here is to create some like process that everyone must follow. What my real hope here, my intention was to see if we could have some guidance that would say something like, if you're creating a new provider and you're going to be doing releases, you might consider these styles of releasing. Like for example, this is what AWS does, or this is what Azure does, just something to give people a leg up so they could feel a little more comfortable integrating into our community. When they start to talk about making a new release, or like, we'd like to start having weekly meetings to, progress this further, those kind of things, I guess.
Fine.
Yep. Also plus one from my side. I think it would be good to start collecting what are relevant things. I mean, releasing is one thing, then the meetings. Then I think for some it's relevant to how to donate a project. I think we shouldn't duplicate any documentation that we have elsewhere, but maybe just something like a single page in a book, which links out to all the documentation is out there, just to collect it essentially.
Yeah, that would be nice too. So I saw in chat, Stefan, you kind of said maybe making a PR to collect best practices. I'm happy to take that as a follow-up here, maybe like open an issue or a PR where we could just start having a conversation about this and maybe collecting all the ideas.
Yeah. Maybe a discussion is better, because then we can just dump ideas there, and then from then we can extract it into something which resembles a documentation.
Right, yeah. Like if we're cool to use the discussions, I'm totally happy to open up a discussion about it.
Sounds like a plan. And and then we can blast it to all the provider channels and get provider maintainers to give input.
Yeah, totally. And if something comes out of this that's like a contribution back to the Kubernetes community repo about common advice, like I'm totally cool with that as well. And then we could just link out to it or whatever.
Sounds good. Any questions or other comments on this topic? All right, Fabrizio, go ahead.
So I think that we can skip the note about Cluster API runtime SDK proposal. It is now a PR. So looking forward for feedback from everyone. And if there are no questions, I move to the next one. Okay, so we had a discussion in last week about add-ons, and during the discussion, basically, I brought up that some time ago I've started a document trying to reason about the idea of Cluster API orchestrating some tool, Helm, KApp, whatever, that already has the capability to manage add-on properly. I've polished up my doc, and now it is shared, but the key point is that this is not, let me say, an endpoint or nothing is written in the stone. It is just something to keep the discussion going and see if we can rally on a solution for the add-on space. And and there was already good discussion in chat. If we can move it in the document, it will be probably more collaborative.
Thanks for sharing, Fabrizio. Joe?
I see. I noticed there's a PR already put up around this. I don't know if it's taking a look or if it has any concerns or questions that should be in the doc, but that's something to look at.
May I ask which PR are you referring to?
Sure, I'll find it and put it in chat. Or in
There was a PR open.
I'll find it and put it in the docs. Huh? I mean, in the agenda.
Yeah,
I can provide a little bit more detail. So there was a PR open today or yesterday to implement the always reconcile mode in cluster resource set.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay,
Just
so
an implementation PR.
yeah, let's give a second background about the previous episode on this discussion. So we are basically trying to figure it out if we have to improve CRS or we have to aim to a better solution, a more long-term solution. This was discussed 1 or 2 weeks ago, and probably it is in the last meeting notes. The main point is that we are trying to figure it out. What is the priority, or what are the implications of migrating CSI and CPI, which are, let me say, the main blocker for the add-on story. And as soon as we understand this problem space, then we will figure it out if to invest on CRS or if to move to a solution that definitely solve all the problem in this space. So yeah, we discussed about upgrading CRS. We are not sure this is the right way to go, but we will figure it out.
Vince?
Hey folks, just looking at the PR, I think it would be great if we actually could put it on hold. From a SIG perspective, like I think like I don't remember if this was brought out, but like having CRS continue its path forward when, you know, we created it like out of necessity for us, like just as a temporary thing, like it will get us into territory where like we're literally fighting with like other projects or sub projects like within the SIG and other SIGs or CNCF projects to recreate something within Cluster API, even though this is like a little bit out of the scope for the project. I'm completely fine discussing this more. Like I'm just saying, like, is it okay if we put the PR on hold until further discussions are like we have further discussions? And the other thing I want to point out is like for CPI and CSI, CSI is the only one that's changing in 124. CPI is still kind of on hold, but it's slated for 126, which should put us at, I believe, if my math like is right, like at early next year or late this year.
Late this year, yeah.
It's late this
Joe?
year. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe?
I know that we have customers that have an immediate need for this. Just putting it on hold while we discuss something when we already have, I mean, CRS already exists. It's already being used by customers. This is a relatively small improvement to it. It just doesn't, and it doesn't preclude it from being deprecated later anyway. So I'm not sure what we gain by just putting off a solution to this problem. I don't really see the gain, I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate the honesty there. Like it's just that like adding more features to CRS today and making them more available as an API, that means like we'll have to support this API for longer period of times as is, right? It's like, and today, like at least CRS is still, well, it's beta 1 APIs, but it's experimental, etc. But if we move it forward, there's going to be like a little bit more of talks like to keep it there, which is something that like we always wanted to avoid, like from the inception of this kind of feature, because it was always been like, well, we need this to have I don't know, to install like some stuff like to get the cluster up and running. But getting into an upline mode, not only is like you can shoot yourself in the foot like in a number of ways, like especially like if you apply disjoint data that like it doesn't make sense at times. Like tools like Helm or KApp or like these add-on management tools like do a much better job than what we could do in like by just shoving this in. That's my whole point. Like we could discuss it further, but it's also like we need to take into account like the rest of the ecosystem.
Daniel?
Thanks. Yeah, I think accepting some extension of the current cluster resource functionality is actually like part of why it's experimental, right? We're experimenting with how this particular mechanism can work, and if there's something that's not if there's something that it doesn't have, we can try to extend it. We don't have to commit to it. It's a little odd to see something that's marked experimental, but we can't touch it or extend it. I mean, I think that's sort of the purpose, and I think users understand the experimental nature. I mean, I think I think our documentation makes it makes a lack of guarantees pretty clear.
Yeah, Fabrizio?
Yeah, I don't think that we are saying that we cannot change it. I think that the point is that we are at the beginning of the v1.2 cycle. The next release will be sometime later this year, maybe May or June. That means that we have some implementation time in front of us. And so we are trying to figure it out the best way forward. So we are not saying no, and no one is saying no. We are just trying to understand the option. And so I think that having a discussion is fine. Committing code before we find an agreement, maybe not, given that we have time. So, but yeah, that's my opinion. So I think that it makes sense to consider option before acting.
Fine.
Yep. One thing, in case we decide to extend cluster resources, I think it would be good to discuss it on a kind of proposal level first, instead of trying to discuss it based on implementation. So we currently already have a Google document from Guillermo, which tries to outline one approach. I'm not sure if the implementation is that approach or if it's something else, but it's probably way easier to just discuss how it should work on a proposal versus going back and forth on code. The last time we did it, that doesn't necessarily lead to a very soon merge. So yeah, just in case we want to extend cluster resources.
Alejandro?
Yeah, before I pushed the PR up, I already had discussions with the individual who did the proposal, and we're aligned 100%. So it's not outside of what was proposed, and in part what has been agreed on. So it's in line. You can take a look at the code. You can try it out. It does do what it promises, and not much more than that. What I wanted to say is that what is being proposed, or what is being discussed about making or competing with tools like Helm is something we talked about internally as well. And the conclusions we came up with is those tools can do it better, and they will probably always do it better. And we're not going to try to do that. We're not competing with them. We just can't do that. So this is just a stopgap measure. It's just a new mode to what already exists there. And I think it's a good temporary solution for what we can allow our customers to do. So I think it's a good solution. I think it's a good stopgap. If you guys want to do something a little more, like adding hooks, I think there was a discussion earlier, we can do that for a later tool, which probably will not be CRSS anymore. So, I mean, I think this is important. I think this is a good tool. Take a look. It's just adding a mode. It's not doing much more than that. We're just adding functionality to the existing tool.
Thanks for clarifying that. Just a question, is there a proposal that merged in Cluster API that was approved for this, or are you talking about a Google Doc?
I believe it was a Google Doc at the time. I'm not sure if it's already been merged or not.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, those are all really great points. I think it's still worth, taking a step back, thinking about this, since as Fabrizio pointed out, the release is not going to go out anytime soon anyways, so we can't release this as a feature before we release a 1.2. But I think Joe and Daniel and Alejandro are bringing up good points that even though we don't think that CRS is the long-term solution, there is no other solution right now. And so we can't just wait and not have a solution. So having an experimental feature as a stopgap doesn't, seem like a terrible idea to me, at least. So I think we should consider that. And as I think Daniel pointed out, it is experimental, so there are no API guarantees, which means we could get rid of CRS altogether whenever we get a better solution. So just, worth thinking. What are the next steps for this? Is there going to be a discussion on this, or should we discuss in the PR directly?
I think either both would be completely. I think it would be completely ideal. I definitely encourage people to try it out, see if they like it, if this is what they like, is it slick, give it a try.
Okay, Vince.
So just to clarify, like what I was proposing is to put the PR on hold and continue the discussions with the add-on story that Fabrizio was talking about. Like again, like I'm not like saying like no, or like this is not gonna go in altogether. I'm just stating the facts that like where this came from. So before saying yes to something and merging it in, I would love to take a look at the Google Doc. I think it was linked somewhere in the issue, and also like reconcile that with the add-on story with the hooking mechanics that folks have proposed during the discussions a couple of weeks ago.
Alejandro, did you still have your hand raised, or is that from before?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to lower it.
Cool. Yeah, so let's circle back on this. Maybe everyone can review Fabrizio's document as a first step, and we can see what our concrete action plan should be for 1.2. Maybe one doesn't, they're not mutually exclusive necessarily. It's possible that we end up doing both. It's possible that we come up with a good solution that we think we can have in time for 1.2, in which case it's not worth pursuing CRS, but let's think about it and maybe circle back next meeting to see if we've had some progress since reading the doc. Cool. Any other questions or comments on this? All right. Fabrizio, you also have the last topic.
Okay, so we had some discussion during the issue backlog grooming about our website, our book, and the main topic is that there are a lot of things in our book, but they are not properly well organized. And then there was some thread in the channel about, oh, can we use Hugo like they do in main Kubernetes, or they do in cloud provider Azure as a tool for improving at least the navigation of our document. And so I had some fun playing with Hugo Doxy and create a small prototype very early, just starting to think about how can this look like, how are going to organize. And so, yeah, this is the repository where I played. If someone is interested to move this forward and push this effort, I really like some help because I'm really bad at UX design. So.
Awesome. Looks like we're getting a few +1s in the chat as well. What's the best way for someone to help out? Just go on this link right here.
Yeah, this is a GitHub repository where I have a prototype. You can pull it and start playing. There are in the README there are a list of to do, which are okay. Let's start reasoning about how we can organize content. I have an idea that in my mind the Cluster API books as content from 3 personas. One is the user of Cluster API. Second one are the provider developer. And the last one are the Cluster API developer itself. So the first idea that is on top of my mind, let's see if we can organize content according to these 3 persona. But it is, totally open for discussion. So we can use this repository as a playground around this idea.
Sounds good. Any questions for Fabrizio? All right. Any last minute topics or questions for Cluster API maintainers? If not, this is the end of today's office hours. Thanks for joining, and see you all in Slack and on GitHub. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.